Hey, welcome to this week's The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles and Friends. I wore black. I wore black today. Why did I wear black? Because we're talking about death and real estate. Death, and that's not really why I wore black. I just got up and that was a shirt that was clean. But anyway, long story short, I have my friend, the Gransberry, thegransberry.com, Natasha Gransberry, Esquire, attorney at law. We're going to talk about what happens when you die with real estate, intestate, testate, all these terms, all this differential equations as it pertains to all this stuff. Just a whole lot. It's so much I can't tell you. So you got to listen. So DJ, can you hit that music, please?
Support for this program comes from the Digital Broadcasting Network, presenting podcasts and web series from everyday people who have an extraordinary passion to make the world a better place.
Welcome back to The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles and Friends. And as I said in the intro, I have my friend, my homegirl, my lawyer, my engineer, my patent attorney, my title rep, my ace boon coon, my everything. The Gransberry. Check it out, thegransberry.com, also known as Natasha Gransberry, Esquire, Natasha Gransberry, attorney at law. And as they say in the black church, didn't I bring you up right? Didn't I bring you up when you get ready to the preacher? Welcome.
Thank you. I don't. If you had just said Natasha, I would have been fine.
I know, but I
Miss Cherrydale.
What's Miss Cherrydale? Miss Cherrydale.
Yes.
So shout out to Ridgemont. We are talking about, and we didn't plan this. Mr. Producer just noticed this, and I noticed it as well. We're both wearing black today, and that was not like I didn't call Natasha and say, "Hey, we're going to talk about this particular subject and wear black." But the subject for today is death and taxes. Death and taxes and real estate. I said death and taxes. I don't know why I said that. It's death and real estate.
Guaranteed.
Exactly. Death and real estate. And so I told you guys a couple of weeks ago that I plan to talk about this subject in one form with an attorney, and I'm going to talk about it in another form, hopefully in a couple of weeks, with one of my clients who owns a string of funeral homes, the business of funeral homes and things of that nature. I just think stuff like that is interesting. And so I brought Natasha on. She's been on before. We've talked a little bit about this subject, but I want to have it a little bit more deep conversation because I've been involved in some cases last year, bankruptcy cases that overlaid with death. And I had Aaron Powers on a couple of weeks ago from Porter Hedges talking about bankruptcy, but also some of those cases that we talked about had death involved in it. And since Natasha, especially one of her specialties, I should say, is wills and probate, it's important for us to know what happens when death occurs as far as real estate is concerned. And two, for those investors out there, folks that want to invest, with chaos comes opportunity. With death comes opportunity sometimes for real estate. So with that being said, Natasha, my first question to you is, what happens when we die? That's like a whole holistic. What happens when we die? I'm gonna start there, and then we can go down. What happens when we die? I'm not even gonna say when we die and we own real estate. How about that? What happens when we die and we own real estate?
Well, when we die, there's two decisions one decision that's made, and you'll be put in one of two columns. Okay. Basically, you're either intestate or you're testate, and that is how you will be defined the rest of your deadly life.
Your deadly life.
Your deadly life.
And intestate, and so let me see if I know the intestate, I died without a will.
Correct.
Testate, I died with a will.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so if I died, I'm gonna start with the will first because I think that's a clearer path. If I died with a will, what happens?
Essentially, at some point, someone in the family would need to present that will to the court. The will is not automatically validated upon your death. So it's not like life insurance where you get a death certificate and you get a check. Okay. The will is what you choose or how you choose to leave things for those that are still here. But in order for that to happen, there still must be a court step that says, we agree with this document. It's a good document. Carry out the document.
So I want to stop there because I've seen cases or had people tell me, call my office, mama died, daddy died, whoever died. And I say, oh, okay. And because I know you and you've trained me, I'll say, did they have a will, intestate, or Testate, and they said, oh yeah, they had a will, and I said, okay, cool, and so yeah, I'm the executor, so I'm doing everything that the will said to do, and so I'm like, well, did you go to court, go to pro? Oh no, I don't need to. I got the will. So they literally think I got the will. The will says that I'm supposed to sell the house, or the will says that I'm supposed to sell the house and split it between my siblings, and I'm doing what the will said, so that's valid. So I want to spend just a second on the fact that that's not valid, right?
Correct. That is not valid.
Right. And until the court says, yes, it is valid.
Correct.
Then go do.
Correct.
Right. What's the hesitancy for people to have a will but not go to the probate court?
Actually, I would honestly say it's mostly ignorance.
Right.
It's not a hesitation.
Right.
There's someone actively trying to carry out the wishes. They've reviewed the document. There's no big family dispute. They're thinking we can solve this on our own. Now, if the will is pretty much the same disposition of assets, whether real or personal property, without probate, the family can file a document to void probate and all agree to divide the assets that way. But you still need some type of counsel and advisement to make those decisions.
So you're saying that there is a, for lack of a better term, expedited way to say I don't have to go through all of the probate steps. I can file a document.
Yes, but it's
and
it's
correct
not,
me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an attorney.
That's,
you are.
It's not something that's broad that should be used.
Right.
I'm just mentioning that it
That's
has
an option.
happened before.
Gotcha.
It's in very narrow cases, mainly because you have to give creditors an opportunity to collect. So you can't use it to circumvent collectors.
Gotcha.
But there are different probate options, which we can nowhere near get into completely in detail today, or pretty much any day would be exhaustive for everyone.
Right.
But in general, the main thing you want to think about is I have a will. I need to get advisement and counsel to proceed with my next step.
So I have a will. I go to the Gransberry, or in this case, Natasha Gransberry, Esquire, and we sit down. You tell me what you're telling me now, and then we proceed, or you proceed to help me go through the process of the probate process.
Correct.
What happens, and again, this is just my own, because Natasha's also handled a couple of probate cases for my own family as well. What happens when the will says that all three, me, Johnny Boy, and Susie Girl, split 33, but Johnny Boy said, no, Daddy told me that he wanted me to have everything. And even though the will said 33, what happens when I'm contesting, one of us is contesting will from either a probate standpoint and or a real estate standpoint? Because Johnny Boy tripping.
Well,
I don't know why it's
essentially,
Johnny Boy. I just said Johnny Boy.
right.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's still to the probate court where your disputes would take place.
So Johnny Boy would have to go to the court and say, nah, that will is either invalid, or this is what the intent, or get counsel themselves to contest
Correct.
it. Yeah.
Correct. I mean, and there are usually in the more modern wills the clauses that say you can't contest. So you wouldn't really contest percentages and things of that nature. If you're contesting, hopefully, and not hopefully in a good way, but hopefully your logic is it's invalid from some fraud, or the person had dementia the last 10 years, but this will was from 2 years ago.
Gotcha.
And there's documentation from doctors that this person's mental capacity hasn't been there at the time to even have executed a will with sound mind. So that would be something you would do. Or there's issues where the direct heir who believes they're the direct heir, like you could be the only
Here we go. This the one that this the reality show one right here. Go ahead. I know where you're about to go.
Where you could be the only, for instance, grandchild.
Here we go.
And in that instance, you would assume because your grandmother passed, everything is yours. Because intestate laws, you are the next in line. However,
pedo is however in Spanish. Go ahead.
However, if there is a will and it shows up and the will decides to disperse to siblings, nieces, great nieces and nephews, or anyone of that nature,
known or unknown, at the time, by the way.
At the time, correct. That you would be disinherited. And that's not illegal. I think people must be clear on understanding you're not entitled to someone's estate. The purpose and the joy of a will, I think people should think of it as a joy. You work so hard for all these things that you should be able to give them away the way you see fit. And if you fail to act, the state has stepped in and decided how it should occur.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest difference.
Right. The reason I said the reality show part, because I've heard and seen where I thought I was my daddy's only child, and we all, it's like a Tyler Perry movie. Who is that crying so hard at the funeral? I never recognized them. Oh, that's my half sibling. And then all of a sudden, half sibling is trying to prove half siblingship.
Right. And they can do that even with the will.
Yeah.
So if the will mentions 3 children and there's a 4th,
or 5th or 6th, no, can't do that.
well, it can happen.
Right.
There is a redistribution because you can't be voided without the knowledge.
Right.
That's not contesting per se in a negative way.
Right. It may be
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's
I didn't
not
know.
a negative way.
I didn't know. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be equal. I didn't know Mama or Daddy had another family or these other kids, or that
Mama gave one away a long time ago,
or
but she's still considered.
Right.
Yes.
She's a half sibling. And I bring that up because recently, and this is kind of a little bit off topic. I got my DNA done. I don't have any siblings, by the way, so I'm not about to reveal anything. But I've been reading articles of where people are doing their DNA tests with Ancestry or 23andMe, and they're finding half siblings that they didn't know they have, either through affairs, love children, literally, or through adoption and things of that nature. And so the article was talking about all these things that occur. Yeah, the person is finding out who their parents are and can now find out if there are any health issues that run in their family. But also I was thinking, man, what happens when my adoptive father or my biological father or dad or parent is well off and they now pass, and do I have right to? I was thinking stuff like that.
Right, and those are so case by
case. Yeah, of
right,
course.
And you would definitely
but
research
it brings up that type of stuff, right?
Correct. Well, and it's also important to remember there's still a time period. You're expected to probate an estate within 4 years of death.
Okay,
it's not an immediate action. Usually, people are more apt to act when they're married and there are younger children. There are things they just have to get in order. Sometimes when our older family members pass, there's not a sense of urgency. There may be someone already living in the home, doing the upkeep.
Johnny boy living in the house, ain't paying no taxes. No,
right. And then once a letter arrives, now we need to act because something's going
that
wrong
happens quite
or
a bit.
astray.
Yeah.
So that's usually when you'll see that. I usually just advise people when they call, we have time. If you need a few months to gather yourself emotionally, and you have life insurance, and this is not something you immediately need to resolve, then we can follow and circle back.
So I had a question about, so what happens, can I sell a property and have a will? Can I sell a property as an executor without having probated the
Well, you're never an executor if
Oh.
the will's not probated.
Okay.
It names you to serve, but you're not the executor.
I just got corrected, but that's why I'm doing this, right? That's good. No, that's good.
So you
because people call themselves, I'm the executor of the
Johnny.
will. I'm Johnny.
You just Johnny.
Right.
And Bob is dead.
Right.
Okay. Johnny, if he has an interest in the property, you can always sell your interest. You can sell your interest any day of the week that you choose. The buyer is responsible for whatever's a public record. And he knows for sure somebody's dead because the person that's on the deed is not the person selling him the interest. So he takes it subject to whatever problems he inherits. The only thing is Johnny just has to be truthful.
So in that particular scenario, obviously, if I went through a title company would not issue a title policy in that because they don't have anything.
Of course they wouldn't.
Right. But
you could still do a cash sale or
exactly. I was thinking about, and this is a outlier, someone trying to sell and cash out stuff before they
it happens all the time.
Before they probate it, so that the state or them having to share that money is not is not.
It happens
there
all the time, especially with raw land. Some family members just sell their interest, and they allow that third party to deal with the family.
So we've kind of gone down the I have a will road. What happens when I don't have a will? So now I've died. I didn't. I might have spoken my wishes, but I've never put it in writing from a will standpoint. So what happens, Ms. Gransberry, when that happens? When I call you with that scenario, Mama didn't have a will, and I just
We'd
don't
have
know.
a probate consultation because there are some different factors that will allow me to put you in different categories for intestate actions, because we have things called small estate affidavits, which are for spouses who still live in the homestead home. The estate is not worth much, and there is nothing owed other than pretty much the mortgage on the home. Those things don't require court hearings. They're literally what they are. They're a complete affidavit to the estate status.
I'm just attesting to this is what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you get two disinterested people to execute and support that. Yes, he was married to Susie. Him and Susie had 2 children. These are the bank accounts they have. You list the things you need because you need to be able to get the money out of these solo accounts, and you can proceed. So you actually need to consult with the person, because you can't just tell them, oh, we'll file independent administration. That is the formal name for when you have no will, and it's pretty much the same. When you're an executor, you're an independent administrator as well, unless the court sees a reason to make you dependent, meaning getting permission from the court. One is just with the will, one is without.
Okay, gotcha.
Without, the largest difference is the court is following the statutes of the state with how to divide up the assets.
Which generally are what? Just even distribution?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's generally what it is.
Yeah.
And for each person that's deceased in the line of lineage, their heirs and their lineage will take that same share.
Gotcha.
And that's pretty
So
much
I'm
it.
selling a 41-acre tract out in Kendleton right now, and there were 9 siblings, and the only one is left. She's 95. Everyone else is passed away. Actually, there were 2 left when I started the listing, and one has just recently passed. So the attorney just called me and said, I got to probate that. And so it ends up being 26 or 24 heirs to this land. And he is beating his head against the wall because he's had to go and find
and
all
complete
of them.
all the heirs to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So as an example of what you were just saying. So so I have the will, I come get a consultation. We either do a small
Well, we won't do a small estate affidavit if you have a will,
Okay.
unless you were the sole heir.
Gotcha.
And
Nobody-
it wouldn't matter
Gotcha.
either way, and
Okay.
you don't want to probate because it's just all for you anyway.
Gotcha.
But if there's some heirs at law, remember, once you choose not to probate, the heirs at law come in
Gotcha.
handy, and so it's divided accordingly. So if it's not the same, then you might want to seek something else, because you can actually probate a will as minument of title, which is where you're literally just transferring title to the home because there's nothing else to the estate again.
Gotcha.
So you don't need this full probate.
Right.
Full probates is when you have all these assets, different cars, different property, homes and contents that need to be dispersed or sold.
So let me ask you this. You mentioned mortgage. What happens to my mortgage on my house when I die? Assuming that I didn't have insurance to pay it off or anything like that. If I had a mortgage on a house as the creditor, I'm assuming that mortgage still needs to be paid off by the estate, or
It still needs to be paid monthly.
Right.
The beautiful thing about the way mortgages are set up, if someone dies and the mortgage is in their name, the lender has a duty to allow whoever inherits the home to continue the mortgage.
Okay.
Now, they can't immediately talk to you because of the issues with privacy,
Okay.
but you could eventually submit death certificates and say, we're not probating this estate. We just want to continue paying the mortgage. As long as they receive the mortgage,
Yeah, most banks don't care.
they don't care.
Right.
Sometimes they try to make people sign assumptions to just manage it better,
Right.
but you can continue the mortgage that's of record. It only becomes an issue when
You don't pay.
correct.
And it's a fallacy to think, well, Johnny Boy died. that was his mortgage. It wasn't in my name, so I still own the house, but I don't have to
Oh,
pay
you
the
own
mortgage.
the house.
Yeah.
Just like Johnny Boy did,
Right.
subject to a lien.
Right. And that lien, they can enforce that deed of trust, that don't pay, don't stay document.
Correct.
Gotcha. I'm just throwing it out there. I know.
I mean, here's something, and I hate to say this, but it's probably one of the biggest issues I see is the failure to get the will when you know you have multiple children and different things going on in their life, meaning behind on child support, behind on taxes.
I need to do a whole podcast just on child support liens.
Well, those liens are interfering with the title of your other siblings when you're trying to sell a home. And then that's not to say the state won't work with you and do the disbursement based on the amount that they only own. If they only own a 10% interest, they can't ask the estate to cover all of the lien, and they won't. But it's a lot of headache and paperwork,
Yes,
and
it is.
usually the sibling doesn't want to participate because they're not getting anything.
Right. They're like, whatever. I had that happen 2 years ago. One sibling had had child support lien and was just so disinterested in participating and coming to even sign to sell the property that they literally had to go, his siblings basically had to go get him and bring him to close and say, we just need your signature and we can take you back home. And I think they ended up giving him a little money on, out after they got their money or something. But you're right. Like he just like, why am I here? I'm not gonna get anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would just be better
Right.
if that is avoided. I've actually seen a parent now use the survivor deed
Okay.
and deed straight to
The transfer on death or whatever they call it.
transfer on death
Yeah.
deed to other siblings and the grandchild of the parent that can't,
Gotcha.
that owes.
Let me give it to Johnny Boy Jr.
Right.
Gotcha. If there's somebody out there called Johnny Boy, nothing offense. I'm just using that as a name.
It works. It works in a different way too.
So speaking of that, real quick, transfer on death deed is a relatively new deed,
thing
at least
for the
in
state
Texas.
of Texas.
Yeah.
We haven't had it that long, but people should be cautious to still understand that a creditor cannot be circumvented with this
The
deed.
transfer deed.
If that asset is enough to cover debts that they feel that are necessary to cover their costs, they can have that deed voided and add that house back to the estate and file probate. Most people don't understand, depending on the size of a creditor, they may file the probate on your behalf. Lenders will file probates.
Because I want my money.
Correct.
Right.
And they need to get all
I
the
didn't know you could
proper
do that.
parties.
Yeah.
Well, you're an interested party in the estate. You need to either be an heir or an interested
To
party.
file probate. Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know. See, that's this type of stuff you get.
Foreclosure firms have a probate department.
Gotcha. Really? Wow. And by the way, I'm sorry, Mr. Producer, I just hit the table. We just talked about that. I'm sorry. I get excited, y'all, and I start banging on thing like I'm playing dominoes. So
10.
Exactly. So the reason then that someone would do a transfer on death deed is just the simplicity of it, basically.
To simplify their estate.
Okay.
If you have one home, it's usually for situations. I would even say my family's a good example to do it. There's 2 children. There's 2 parents. I mean, the parents, they each have a home. They've decided how they want to handle each home already. We've all discussed it in open discussions. They can just execute the document and
file it now.
And file it now.
Right. And then upon death, you
file an affidavit.
You file an affidavit that
to
the death has
finalize
occurred. Got you.
Right.
I think I just heard about these recently, to be honest with you, the transfer on death deed and the simplicity of it in cases like that, where it's simple. I think is a awesome opportunity.
Right. You're talking.
And that's not to say that you still don't probate a will,
right? But
it's
the
still,
house is
done.
transitioned
Right.
smoothly,
Right.
and you move along, and there's other assets to cover things. Because sometimes what you can do is you still file the probate, and there could be debts $2,000-3,000, but you could have enough cash to just
Knock
pay
that
those
out.
creditors
Right.
and continue on.
Yeah. So, intestate without a will, testate with a will. Once I have a will, I've gone through the probate, assuming I went through the full probate process, and I've been named
The executor or executrix.
executrix.
Since it's Women's International Day.
Exactly.
And if you're a lady, you would be the executrix.
And I didn't know that, and I have a lady on the thing. I'll get a little credit, but no, it's International Women's Day. So if once that happens, once I've gone through this process, what does the probate process allow the executor or executrix to do?
Step in the shoes of the deceased. You now will have official letters of testamentary if you are if you have a will, and you will have the letters if you are the independent administrator.
Got you.
And those will allow you to call lenders, talk to creditors, negotiate. You are now in the shoes of the deceased.
Gotcha.
You're like your own mini lawyer,
Gotcha.
pretty much,
Gotcha.
accountant, power of attorney. So
Gotcha.
it's like the formalized way
to deal with the estate.
Correct.
Right.
And the letters are your doorkeeper to everywhere.
Is there a checksum? So I've gotten my letters of testimony. I'm officially in the shoes of the deceased. Is there a process that checks to see if I've done everything in the will that the will stated, or no?
Truly no.
Okay.
But hiring a lawyer, your lawyer is going to advise you of the things in your next step. And your lawyer should have thoroughly reviewed the will to make sure that happens. And if that's not happening, send you emails and letters telling you
you haven't done this yet.
Right. Or when the lawyer receives a claim, to advise you, look, you said we have $20,000. I need you to give me a check for $1,500 to pay this claim with the court. And if I need the paper trail that you're being told to pay this claim and you're failing to, it's up to the family and everything to present to the court and the lawyer.
That you didn't do what you...
Right, and remove.
Right.
But yes, that's pretty much your checks and balances.
Gotcha.
The court is looking for inventory to make sure you've told them what assets are available, because you have to give the creditors the option to see what they can collect from. So
what do you see in your practice over the years from both, we didn't talk about your background, but you've real estate attorney, you've run title, still do title research and for folks, wills and probates. What are, I guess, 2 or 3 of the things that you see that people just really need to be aware of when it comes to real estate and death?
So disclaimer, it'll be 14 years for me this May.
Congratulations.
So I have been doing this for
a long time.
Lengthy period of time.
Right.
Always real estate from day one, even if I've done other things. And it's still consistently from year 1 to year 14 almost the same problems. A failure of families to plan. There are too many blended families in America.
It's way more than it used to be. Yeah, absolutely.
Way more. Openly blended families.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he's
the Brady
not
Bunch,
your dad.
Brady
right.
Bunch families, yeah.
And a failure to plan for that. That is the number one issue that I see constantly, regardless if you're selling real estate.
Right.
Just
estate, period.
Living with someone unmarried and the person who owns the home passes. You've now left.
I'm sorry. The funerals and weddings, boy. Go ahead. That's when drama. One of my life things is drama happens in funerals and weddings. Go ahead.
So whether or not the family
you
relationship,
raised me, but we never got married.
Correct.
Right. So we raised Johnny Boy, and then I own the house, and Johnny Boy is your child.
Correct.
Right. And I
you
die.
Pass.
And so I'm thinking, well, that's
and
my daddy.
Your family doesn't like me.
Yeah.
And they politely would like me to get out of Johnny Boy's house.
Man.
And Johnny Boy made no plans for what we should do. But we've been together for 14 years.
We just never got the paper.
And my son is 16, and now we have nowhere to stay.
Right.
That.
Yes. I've seen it. I've seen it so many times.
We love each other.
Right.
We got married.
Right.
I brought my 2 kids. You brought your 2 kids.
Right.
I don't have 2 kids, but just to say I did.
Right.
And we had a kid together.
Right.
So we a family of 5.
Right.
With no wills.
With no wills.
And you pass.
So my kids plus I have kids.
Correct.
That's it.
Well, it's not it. It's just that.
Well, not it, but.
Right. It's just that your other kids, they mamas, have an interest in telling me how to handle the estate because they have a portion.
Right. Because the babies. Wow.
The 2 kids.
Wow.
And we hope those 2 have the same mama, because that's another mama. for me to deal
Right.
with. Why leave me in this
Right. Plus
Johnny?
playing. Yeah.
plan, Johnny?
G-Berry said, why leave me in this, Johnny? Come on, Johnny boy. Yeah, yeah.
Plan for me.
Right. Right. Since you love me so, even though we didn't get married.
If you love me, well, this time we were
Oh,
married.
no, that's right.
Whether
I'm sorry.
we married or not,
it's still the same issue.
it's the same issue.
Right. Right. Right.
You
Wow.
have 2 kids without me.
Right. Right.
Okay? So someone else now, I
You
have
talking
to.
about baby mama drama. Go ahead. Yeah.
Family
Yeah.
mama drama,
Yeah.
either way you look at it.
Right.
You've just completely allowed us
And
to
that's
be
traumatic.
very traumatic.
Other than the death itself.
You don't even have time to cherish the death, and now you're judging people according to how they're handling that situation. Okay?
Yeah.
And that failure to plan is horrible.
huge, yeah.
And then 2, if you make a plan
Mm-hmm.
and you have adult children, not being forthcoming about how you plan to execute that plan. When you, like I said, we've had family discussions.
So it's all out in the open.
It's all out in the open at the
Right.
same time.
Right.
Nobody is in
Right.
a hidden figure situation
Right.
to know that,
Right.
oh, so you left the house to her?
Right.
Why not me?
And so now I'm sad you died, and I'm mad at you because you cut me out, or I felt like you cut me out, or you didn't
Correct.
give me my due. or
Don't
whatever.
even know there might be a life insurance policy on the way, but
Right.
you've created all this anger. So
Yeah.
you don't went over to the house and removed things.
Right. That's what they do. Let me go get mama. Let me go get mama a ring because she said I could have it. Mama mink. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Yeah.
So and the third I would say is not really knowing what everything
Is.
and in order, meaning you had
Yeah.
for instance, my grandmother's estate was probated. It didn't have a will, but it was properly probated. So there's no open tickets pretty much to your lineage. And so when your lineage is not properly in order, those things show up later too. For instance, we have a home that was left by my aunt to other family members,
Okay.
and then it became my grandmother's basically. And then my grandmother passed. We properly probated, and it's now the sister's home. But that's 2 sisters. But because it's properly probated, it's properly divided. Now those 2 sisters have to take care of it, because when something happens to them, now it'll be 4, because it's 4 grandchildren. You have to make sure those things are in order, because if you had no will for the aunt who owned it, and by law it just went to her mother, and by law my grandmother passed, and by law it goes to the 2 siblings, then you need all those affidavits of heirships, all those forms just to try to sell it. We don't need that,
Right.
because everybody took care of their lineage line.
their part, yeah.
My aunt had a probate. My grandmother had a probate. We making sure the sisters have a probate. And when you don't take care of the things you already inherited and make sure they're inherited properly, you create more, and people don't want to spend the money to fix it.
Yeah, and that last example you just gave is the reason why you hire an attorney, because it becomes, both of us are engineers by trade. It becomes a differential equation analysis.
Oh my gosh.
To determine it is like you literally have to sit down and write a Venn diagram.
flowchart.
Flow chart.
It's a flow chart.
Literally
That's
a flow
literally
chart.
what it is.
Yeah,
It's a flow chart.
Absolutely.
And the organizational chart for those who work in corporate America.
exactly.
And it gets bigger and bigger as
the further you go down.
The further you go down.
The further you go down. And that's assuming that you know most of the stuff. The attorney that I'm selling the land for, he thought he was finished at 15 and then found another sibling that had some more kids. So it's an
Yes.
investigative.
And that's the thing, you leave that burden.
And the state is not that big. So
Right,
yeah.
and you leave that burden. And I, when you have multiple children like that, that you need to figure out who can be in charge better, and just say, sell everything, divide it up. Don't give 15 people one house.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
8 people one house.
Right.
And leave some authority.
to
Give
make decisions.
8 sets of proceeds.
Right. To
You
to
have
each
to make
one.
some
Yeah.
decisions.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the opportunities for folks that are looking for, sometimes the will does say sell it and distribute it. And so if you're in looking for opportunities. Sometimes you can find decent opportunities with after death because people have to sell the property.
Correct.
And not necessarily saying that, you know, you have to sell it at a discount, but sometimes they want a quick sale because they just want to get to the proceeds so that they can get those out. So that's why I say that sometimes there's opportunity for investors or folks that are looking for deals because you know, the proceeds are more important than the actual property itself. So with that being said, and as they say in the Black church, as we come to a close, that's what they say at the end of the sermon for those of you that are affiliated with the African American church tradition. I'm a preacher's kid, I can't help it. I want to bring up something that's outside of real estate and death. Tell us about the Gransberry. What's the Gransberry?
I wasn't ready.
Yeah, that's okay. But what's the Gransberry? I know your last name is Gransberry.
Everything.
Okay, so
she's
this is, by the way, for those
me.
watching on the video, this is the Gransberry. So she's gonna tell us real quick what the Gransberry is.
She's all of me. She's an engineer. She's a lawyer. She's a lover of sports.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what word is stronger than lover of sports.
I don't know either.
Yeah, but there's definitely a love of sports.
Yes.
Right.
I map my fall around football.
Mm-hmm.
She's an author.
Mm-hmm.
She
travels.
She travels
extensively.
Yes.
To sports. Mm-hmm.
For sporting events, not just football, for sporting events. She has been to 29 football stadiums.
Of the 32.
Well, it's only 31 because
team.
the Jets and Giants share a stadium.
See?
But
I didn't know this. Go ahead.
So she's been to 29 of the 31 for a football game, but I've actually visited 30 of them. I've only not been to the Buffalo Bills Stadium at all for any reason.
Yeah, and I could,
understand why. I mean, after what they did to Thurman Thomas, right?
Right. Willow Ridge.
Yeah. Okay. But no, I run a female fan sports group called Pumps Cleats Couture, and I run my Chronicles, the Gransberry Chronicles, where I try to engage sports fans with tailgating, food, sports travel, and just travel for fun, period. And I'm taking my first co-ed trip with 18 people at the end of this month. To New Orleans. I'm excited about that. My very first trip had 3 people.
Wow.
So it's now up to 18, and I still have a few messages from a couple of stragglers that would like to be added on, and I'm going to see how I can work that out. But I may end up with a group of about a little over 20. But I'm definitely a girl that loves to share that energy and inspire people to, your dreams can change daily, and you can execute them daily, and you can be multifaceted, which you are as well, engineers, real estate. And
can't put us in a box.
Right. And the important thing is to do what makes you happy. And I think that is embodied in everything I do. I do exactly what makes me happy.
So people want to find out about the Gransberry, they can go to
thegransberry.com.
Thegransberry.com. If people want to get in touch with you about Will's probate's death and Johnny Boy, what to do with Johnny Boy?
Well, they would have to look me up on the State Bar.
Gotcha.
That's a trick I learned from a law professor.
Gotcha.
That if they like you, they'll find you.
Got you. So with that being said, I'm going to let you make it easier. If you need to get in touch with her for legal services because the law doesn't allow her to do that. That was a nice little wraparound she just did. Contact me, just like y'all have done in the past. I just had a couple calls from folks about the bankruptcy in real estate to get in touch. Aaron did the exact same thing. He answered the question very similarly. Just tell him to call you. So call me. I can do this. She can. And I can put you in touch with Natasha Gransberry Esquire. But if you want to find out about the Gransberry, which is all in the same gumbo of person, then go to thegransberry.com as always. And as always, I ask, please, for those of you right now that are listening on your phones or online, please do me 3 favors. Subscribe, and that's actually 1 favor, but I'm just saying it 3 times. Subscribe. We are looking for subscribe. Please comment. For those of you on Apple, iTunes, and Google Play, please just send a word if you're enjoying this. Heck, if you're not enjoying it, let me know, but just please comment and then please share. So subscribe, comment, and share the Real Estate of Life if you're enjoying the content and the guests that we have and things of that nature. So I appreciate you coming this week again. This is one of our regular contributors. She has told me in the past, I feel like I can share this, that there's a podcast for the Gransberry coming in the future at some point in time. So we'll have her back on when she gets ready to launch that. So I really do appreciate it. And then secondly, as we go throughout the rest of this year, I hope to have continued awesome guests like Natasha, so we can share information. I get the feedback that you guys really like when I have guests and we're talking about these different subjects. So that's why I ask that you give me comments and feedback, and I get the emails separately. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can call me at the office at 281-403-3700. Again, that's 281-403-3700. Or you can email me at kevin@kevinriles.com, kevin@kevinriles.com. So thank you, Natasha. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And this has been the Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. Hey, thanks for listening as always. Do you have questions about any of the topics I'm talking about? If you have questions, let me know. Email me at kevin@kevinriles.com. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com. I'm going to do a podcast just on the questions that you guys are sending to me. So feel free to send them to me. Again, that's kevin@kevinriles.com.